Welcome back, fight fans. You wanted more legendary punches? You got them. From Iron Mike's spine-tingling uppercut to a jab so hard it could stop a freight train, we're diving into 10 more signature punches that made boxing history. These aren't just punches, they're career-defining weapons that struck fear into the hearts of champions. So buckle up, because this ride through boxing's greatest hits is about to get wild. Let's kick things off with the most feared one-punch knockout artist you've probably not heard enough about, Julian the Hawk Jackson. This Virgin Islands destroyer possessed what many consider the single most devastating right hand in middleweight history. We're talking about a punch so powerful it literally lifted opponents off their feet and sent them crashing like they'd been hit by a wrecking ball. Jackson's right hand wasn't just powerful, it was sneaky fast. He'd set it up with feints and subtle movements, then wham, lights out before you even saw it coming. His knockout of Harold Graham in 1990, Graham was winning every round, dancing circles around Jackson, when one right hand turned him into a human pretzel. Graham was unconscious before he hit the canvas, his body contorted in ways that made viewers wince. With 55 knockouts and 61 wins, Jackson's right hand had a higher kill rate than a Navy SEAL sniper. The crazy part? He did most of this damage while legally blind in one eye. That's right, this man was knocking out world-class fighters with basically one working eye. When you pack that kind of power with that kind of disadvantage and still dominate, that's not just skill, that's supernatural. Number 9, Gazelle Punch. Before anime made it famous, Floyd Patterson was perfecting the Gazelle Punch, a leaping left hook that came from nowhere like a wild animal pouncing on prey. Peterson, the youngest heavyweight champion before Mike Tyson, developed this acrobatic punch out of necessity. At only 6 feet tall fighting giants, he had to get creative. The Gazelle Punch was poetry in motion. Patterson would crouch low, almost disappearing from view, then suddenly spring up and forward while throwing a devastating hook. It was like watching a coiled spring explode. The punch got its name because Patterson literally looked like a gazelle leaping through the African savanna. Against Ingemar Johansson in their rematch, this punch helped Patterson become the first man to regain the heavyweight title. What made it special wasn't just the knockout punch, it was the complete unpredictability. Opponents couldn't time it, couldn't see it coming, couldn't defend against it. 1 second Patterson was crouched low, the next he was airborne with his fist connecting with your jaw. Try explaining that to your corner between rounds. With his peekaboo style and Gazelle Punch, Patterson proved that in boxing, sometimes you gotta think outside the box, or in this case, above it. Number 8, body attack. They say the body never lies, and nobody exposed more liars than Julio Cesar Chavez. The Mexican legend didn't have one signature body punch, he had an entire symphony of liver shots, rib crackers, and solar plexus destroyers. Chavez turned body punching into an art form, a slow torture that broke men's wills before breaking their bodies. His left hook to the liver was particularly vicious. Chavez would dig it in with surgical precision, finding that sweet spot just below the ribs that would make grown men drop to their knees and reconsider their career choices. Against Meldrick Taylor, Chavez's relentless body attacks set up one of the most dramatic finishes in boxing history, stopping Taylor with just 2 seconds left in the fight when Taylor was ahead on all scorecards. With 87 knockouts and 107 wins, Chavez proved that you don't need to headhunt to destroy opponents. He'd invest in the body like a smart businessman, and the dividends always paid off in the later rounds. Fighters would literally quit on their stools rather than absorb more punishment. When Chavez went downstairs, opponents wished they'd taken the elevator. Number 7, apocalyptic right hand. When God was handing out punching power, Ernie Shavers must have gotten in line twice. This man hit so hard that opponents didn't just get knocked out, they got knocked into different time zones. Muhammad Ali, who fought everyone, said Shavers hit him harder than anyone else. That's like Stephen King saying your horror story scared him. Shavers' right hand was the stuff of nightmares. It wasn't technically perfect, it wasn't particularly fast, but when it landed, game over. Larry Holmes, who survived it, said getting hit by Shavers was like being struck by a telephone pole swung by a giant. Ken Norton said Shavers hit so hard that when he missed, the wind from the punch hurt. That's not hyperbole, that's physics defying logic. The stats are staggering, 68 knockouts and 74 wins with 23 first-round demolitions. Shavers knocked out men that nobody else could even hurt. His right hand didn't just end fights, it ended consciousness, ended dreams, ended any thought of ever wanting to be hit by Ernie Shavers again. In the heavyweight division's golden era, nobody, and I mean nobody, hit harder than the man from Warren, Ohio. Number 6, Stone Fist. Manos de Piedra, hands of stone. This wasn't just a nickname for Roberto Duran, it was a medical diagnosis. The Panamanian legend's right hand was a guided missile that could find its target through the eye of a needle. Unlike the wild sluggers, Duran's right was a precision instrument of destruction, delivered with the timing of a Swiss watch and the impact of a sledgehammer. What separated Duran's right from other power punches was its versatility. He could throw it straight, loop it in as an overhand, or sneak it in as a counter. Against Ken Buchanan, Duran's right hand was so devastating it literally lifted the lightweight champion off his feet. The punch that ended Sugar Ray Leonard's unbeaten streak in their first fight? A perfectly timed right hand that proved Duran could bang with anyone at any weight. Duran's right hand helped him capture titles in 4 weight divisions across 5 decades. That's not normal human stuff. That's legendary. He'd study opponents like a scholar, then destroy them like a savage. With 103 wins and 70 knockouts, Duran's stone fist wrote epic poems of violence across the boxing landscape. When Roberto Duran's right hand spoke, the boxing world listened, usually from a horizontal position. Number 5. Telephone pole jab. Forget everything you know about jabs being setup punches. Sonny Liston's jab was a demolition tool that could end fights by itself. With an 84-inch reach and fists measured at 15 inches around, largest ever recorded, Liston's jab hit like other fighters' power punches. It wasn't a rangefinder, it was a range destroyer. The Big Bear's jab was so powerful it broke orbital bones, split lips like overripe fruit, and psychologically destroyed opponents before the real beating began. Against Cleveland Williams, Liston's jab literally knocked him down. Not a right hand, not a hook, just a jab. Floyd Patterson, who lost twice to Sonny, said the jab felt like getting hit with the end of a telephone pole. Coming from a 2-time heavyweight champion, that's not an exaggeration. What made it truly terrifying was Liston's intimidation factor. This was a man with mob connections, a criminal past, and dead eyes that looked through you, not at you. When that telephone pole jab started pumping, fighters didn't just face physical destruction, they faced existential dread. No wonder Muhammad Ali had to play crazy to beat him. Against Sonny Liston's jab, sanity was a luxury nobody could afford. Number 4. Perfect right hand. The Brown Bomber's right hand was the atom bomb of boxing. Devastating, precise, and capable of ending any fight at any moment. Joe Louis didn't just throw a right hand, he delivered justice. For 12 years as heavyweight champion, that right hand was judge, jury, and executioner rolled into one perfectly timed punch. Louis's right hand was a thing of technical beauty. He'd set it up with one of boxing's best jabs, then deliver it with the efficiency of a Detroit assembly line. Against Max Schmeling in their rematch, Louis's right hand delivered one of sport's most symbolically important victories, destroying Hitler's Superman in 124 seconds. Against Billy Conn, when it looked like Louis might lose his title, one perfect right hand in the 13th round snatched victory from defeat's jaws. The Bomber finished with 52 knockouts and 66 wins, defending his title a record 25 times. His right hand didn't discriminate. It knocked out brawlers, boxers, tough guys, and champions with equal effectiveness. Louis once said, "Everyone has a plan until they've been hit." When Louis's right hand did the hitting, plans didn't just change, they evaporated like morning dew in the desert. Number 3. Laser beam right. The Hitman's right hand wasn't just a punch, it was a heat-seeking missile launched from a 78-inch reach. Tommy Hearns transformed the straight right into a weapon of mass destruction, capable of knocking out opponents from distances other fighters couldn't even reach. When that right hand extended, it looked like someone shooting a laser beam across the ring. What made Hearns' right so special was the leverage. Standing 6'1" but fighting at welter, he had the height and reach of a heavyweight with the speed of a lightweight. His right hand traveled in a perfectly straight line, gathering momentum like a freight train before impact. Against Roberto Duran, one right hand ended the legendary Warrior's night in 2 rounds, the first time Duran had ever been knocked out. That's like being the first person to climb Everest. The statistics are mind-blowing. 48 knockouts and 61 wins across 5 weight divisions, but numbers don't capture the aesthetic beauty of Hearns' right hand. It was violence as art, destruction as poetry. Opponents knew it was coming, trained specifically to avoid it, and still got knocked out. In those legendary battles with Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, win or lose, the Hitman's right hand always stole the show. Number 2. Show-stopping bolo punch. If boxing is the sweet science, Sugar Ray Leonard's bolo punch was the sugar on top. This wasn't just a punch, it was showmanship at its finest, a weapon that hurt your body and your pride simultaneously. Leonard took a traditional Filipino technique and turned it into must-see TV, windmilling his arm like he was pitching in the World Series before delivering the devastating blow. The bolo punch became Leonard's calling card during the greatest rivalry turnaround in boxing history. After losing to Roberto Duran in their first round, Leonard came back in the rematch with a game plan: frustrate, humiliate, and destroy. The bolo punch was his exclamation point. He'd wind up that right hand, making Duran look foolish as he tried to defend against a punch that came from angles that didn't exist. It worked so well that Duran famously quit, saying "no mas, no more." Against Marvin Hagler, Leonard's bolo punch was part psychology, part pugilism. Every time he threw it, he was saying, "I'm not afraid of you." It scored points with judges and fans while infuriating Hagler. With Olympic gold and world titles in 5 divisions, Leonard proved that boxing isn't just about hurting people, it's about doing it in style. When Sugar Ray wound up that bolo punch, he wasn't just throwing a punch, he was conducting a symphony of sweet science. Number 1. Devastating uppercut. Ladies and gentlemen, the most feared punch in boxing history, Iron Mike Tyson's uppercut. This wasn't just a punch, it was a spinal readjustment delivered at warp speed. Tyson's uppercut came from hell's basement, traveled through your soul, and sent you to meet your ancestors. When it landed clean, opponents didn't just fall, they transformed into human highlight reels that are still watched millions of times today. Trained by Cus D'Amato to perfect the peekaboo style, Tyson would bob and weave, making himself a small target, then suddenly explode upward with an uppercut that defied physics. The power came from his legs, traveled through his core, and detonated through his fist. Against Jose Roberto, the uppercut literally lifted him off his feet. Against Michael Spinks, it ended the fight in 91 seconds. In the Nintendo game, it was the one-punch knockout. Art imitating life. Tyson's uppercut was so feared that opponents trained specifically to avoid it, often making them vulnerable to his other punches. It was the ultimate psychological weapon. Even when he didn't throw it, opponents were thinking about it. With 44 knockouts and 50 wins, many coming from that signature uppercut, Tyson redefined heavyweight boxing. At his peak, that uppercut wasn't just the best punch in boxing, it was the most dangerous weapon in all of sports. When Tyson loaded up that uppercut, time slowed down, crowds held their breaths, and someone was about to take an involuntary nap. There you have it, 10 more legendary punches that shook the boxing world. From Julian Jackson's invisible right hand to Mike Tyson's uppercut from hell, these signature weapons defined careers and created legends. But here's the thing, we've now covered 20 punches and we're just scratching the surface. Want part 3? Smash that like button and let me know in the comments which legendary punch we missed. Subscribe and ring that bell because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Remember, in boxing, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how legendary that hit becomes. Stay punchy.